Hi, this is Visitor's Book and I'm Maija, your host. In this program, we're going to be meeting with diplomats and foreigners who live here in Pakistan, and we're going to find out what they really think about the country. So let's go. So today we're here at Indus New Studios, and our guest is the Chinese ambassador Yao Jing. But because of the SOPs that the Chinese embassy is following currently, we're going to call him through a video link. Hi, Mr. Ambassador. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a great pleasure, and thank you for your time and also for your interview.
Absolutely. So, you've been in Pakistan since 2017, right?
Yes, but I should say that this time I have been in Pakistan since 2017, but this is my third posting now in Pakistan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. When did you come here before then?
Yeah, I came here in 1994, almost 25 years ago. Then I came again 2007, about 10 years ago. So I'm in fact quite closely associated with Pakistan.
Oh, that's amazing. So you've really seen the country change over the years, right?
Exactly. I have been a witness to the development and the involvement of Pakistan for the past almost 30 years.
So how would you describe your experience in the country over the years?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that first of all, in 1994, as a very fresh diplomat, I was assigned and posted in Islamabad. So I came, it was my first posting, and I started my diplomat career in Pakistan.
Oh, amazing. So then that's a really interesting connection you have to Pakistan with your career then.
You can say it's a lifelong association with Pakistan.
Great.
Yeah, because
And then...
Please.
Yeah. And then you also were posted to Kabul.
Yes.
Just before you came here again now. Yeah?
Yes, but before Kabul, I was in New Delhi. Then Kabul, then Islamabad. It's a long way to be in Islamabad again.
Perfect. So you've seen like all the region then, over the years.
Yes, I think yes, in South Asia.
And what about now, like during the coronavirus? Obviously, that's the reason we are speaking to each other during this, over this video link here. How has this affected your experience in the country? Like, are you pretty much confined to the embassy, or are you able to take some meetings from time to time?
Yeah, I think this is a very extraordinary situation, and especially for Chinese like me, I think we are more extraordinary because China was locked down in late January. So at that time that we started some kind of interaction with the Pakistani government, the host government, for how to prevent this kind of disease coming to Pakistan. So in fact, my experience and association with this prevention of this disease starting from much earlier than currently Pakistan is faced with. I think that this kind of coronavirus changed a lot, fundamentally changed. For example, first is my job. Previously, my major job is to promote people-to-people contact, economic cooperation, and other, I should say, interactions. But right now, since January, most of my time was devoted to this coronavirus-related prevention, control, medication, cure, or treatment, all these things. Although that right now China is relatively better than Pakistan, but unfortunately this spread of this coronavirus is affecting the daily life of our Pakistani brothers and sisters. So I think that this is one of the major change of even for my work style. For example, previously I had a lot of events and meetings, but right now we are relatively stuck in the embassy premises. Yeah. We don't have a lot
I can imagine.
Yeah, we have a lot, don't have, even like this interview, I would love to visit your studio, but I could not. And I thank you for your arrangement. And for all this, previously I have to visit a lot of, for example, other provinces, discussing with the companies, with the local government, but I could not do it. And also, meanwhile, we have a new content of our job. For example, that a lot of medical job or medical elements have been increased in this. I'm right now is a half expert on even on medical terms.
Second, I think that's happening to everybody these days. Everybody's becoming some sort of a medical expert now.
Yes, and the second is, yes, please.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, please go on.
And the second is also that a lot of discussion is related to this coronavirus. And of course, that this gave us another change of our cooperation. Previously, we may do a lot for the economic investment and this, but right now we have to adopt and reschedule some of our economic cooperation projects. Just now you mentioned, they are like the CPAC. So we put some health sector cooperation, some of these kind of things. So I think a fundamental change is being caused by this coronavirus, and we are experiencing this kind of change.
Yeah. And have you been able to go back to China at all? Like, have you been able to visit your home country during these past couple of months?
No, I was in China last November because I had, but since last December, I have been here. If I went back to China, I don't think I could come back in time. So I think that since my job was my front is in Islamabad, I'm lucky to be with Pakistan people and the government to deal with this challenge.
Okay. And where exactly are you from in China?
I'm from a very small town in southern part of China. Some places close to Shanghai in the middle part.
All right. So, like you mentioned, you've been working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since the 90s. Did you want to focus on this particular region, South Asia, or was it sort of a coincidence that you ended up coming here?
Yes, I think there are some kind of, maybe is a kind of element of the destiny. Since I joined the Foreign Service in 1991, I was assigned to the desk of Pakistan and Afghanistan. But before that, if you remember that in 1990, there was a first ever Asian Games, which was held in Beijing. At that time, I was in a local university and as an English language student. At that time, because the Asian Games were held in Beijing, so we were asked to be volunteers. So we joined this volunteers team, but even at that time, when still I was in the university, I was assigned to be a translator for the Pakistani volleyball team.
Oh, so is it? Yeah, that's fascinating.
So this is, I think, something like predestined that I was associated or has been associated with Pakistan since the very beginning of my career. So after joining the Foreign Service in 1991, I was dealing with the Pakistan desk. And naturally, in 1994, I'm asked to be posted in Islamabad. So since that time, I spent almost my whole diplomatic career with Pakistan and South Asia.
Wow, amazing. And obviously then you must have known quite a bit about Pakistan when you came here, but was there like anything that you didn't expect to be the way it was when you arrived? Like what was the thing that you noticed that surprised you maybe a little bit on your arrival?
In our foreign service, especially in Chinese foreign ministry, to deal with Pakistan is a lucky job. And I think this is well known that China and Pakistan have been in a very good relationship for the past several decades. So in fact, that this is quite honored and also lucky job because basically we don't have a lot of difficult issues. What we want to do or we can do is just further consolidate and strengthen this we call Sino-Pak brotherly friendship and cooperation. So for the past quite many years of association with Pakistan, I'm enjoying and also I'm experiencing this further consolidation and the strengthening of the bilateral relationship. So I think that either it is predestined or it is a kind of my own fate of associating with Pakistan. I think that this is also the luck of my diplomatic career.
Yeah, that's amazing. So in the early 90s, how was Islamabad different from the way it is today?
I think that, yes, in 1990, that was my first foreign posting for me. So everything in my eyes was very, very strange and also very fascinating. I think at that time, Islamabad was very small. If we moved beyond the F8 sector, there are a lot of wider areas. There's no accommodation. But this time you can see we have the F10, F11, if maybe much bigger. Second, in 1990s, there was very few traffic, little traffic. You don't see a lot of this. And right now you can see that the traffic is so heavy. Sometimes even you have these traffic jams. And thirdly, at that time, there were a lot of, I should say, community centers. I still remember there was in the area of G6 or G5, there was a covered market. That was our major shopping center. Not like now, we have these malls or that. This covered center was, I think, is the major shopping center for us. And beside that, there was a Juma market. It was, I think, it was something like a free market over there. And we had a very interesting experience. For example, I don't know any Urdu, but we had to visit this Juma market. At that time, I think the first Urdu I learned is, I don't know, do you know Urdu? I had a very poor knowledge about Urdu. But then when I first visited this Juma market, I saw a lot of porters, and they can offer their service to you. But what they are announcing, what they are shouting is pound rupiah. In fact, later on I understood it is 5 rupees. But in my mind, But in my mind at that time, I saw this pound rupiah means porters. So every time I went there, I first call out some kind of pound rupees. So I think that this is a very interesting experience. And at that time, I think that we had another bigger advantage is that we traveled a lot. I almost spent 5 years since 1994 to 1999, and I did have the chance to travel almost all over Pakistan. And from the northern part till the coastal areas. I think that's a very amazing and fascinating posting at that time.
Yeah. So, I mean, China is a huge country. It has so many different neighboring countries around it, and Pakistan is just one of them. Do people in China know much about Pakistan in general? Is it like a country that comes up in conversations often?
Yeah, I can't say that the people in China, we know a lot or that in big details about Pakistan. But we did have a very rough idea or the general idea. Pakistan is a very friendly neighbor. I just give you 2 examples. When I was young, I think in 1970s, I was in this kind of junior schools. At that time, you know that China was very much conservative. We didn't have a lot of contact with the foreign countries in 1970s. So at that time, if we went to some cinemas to watch some movies, usually we have to watch a certain kind of documentary. And this kind of documentary is usually regarding some China's relations with a certain foreign country. And I still remember that this kind of documentary, one of the major documentaries, is our relations with Pakistan. So even when I was in the junior schools, that we were told that Pakistan is a very friendly country, friendly neighbor of China. And the second is that later on, when I went to the universities, and we did have a little chance to open up and to see that our interaction or foreign policies, then Pakistan became more and more popular, because in the media, although that we, as a young guy before joining the foreign service, we didn't pay a lot of attention to the foreign policy or foreign relations. But Pakistan is a general, I should say, example of China's friend. This is the impression. But I think that your question touched on a very key element of the further enhancing of our bilateral people-to-people mutual understanding. This is not enough. We, for example, in our think tanks in China, we have a lot of think tanks. But if you want to find good Pakistan experts know a lot about Pakistan, it is quite difficult. Second, I checked, for example, our literature. Pakistan has a very rich, I should say, history and a lot of literature or classics here. But we don't see a lot of literature about Pakistan in Chinese publications. So this exactly is what we are trying to do to further expand our people-to-people mutual understanding.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, obviously, CPAC is now a big part of Pakistan-China relations. Has this made more Chinese people interested in moving to Pakistan for work or otherwise?
Yes, of course. I think CPAC is a new project or a new platform. Compared with my previous postings in 1990s or in 2007, at that time, although that China and Pakistan, we were close, we were friendly with each other. But at that time, the relationship has a very little economic element in it. We basically are talking about regional situation. We're talking about our political relationship. But only after the CPAC is started that both China and Pakistan have a more aspect on economic cooperation. So the CPAC, I think, increased first. I think it made Pakistan more prominent in China's business community, that this is a major partner for China's development. And also there is maybe more opportunities and chances for their investment, for their engagement in the economy.
You can also see so many Chinese people here in Islamabad these days as well. I'm wondering if this coronavirus has now impacted their stay in the country. Like, there must be so many Chinese people who are stuck here and not able to go back to their home country.
Yes, I think it is something I have to deal with right now. And right now, I'm not only in Islamabad. In Islamabad, I think around 2,000 people now, Chinese community. But all over Pakistan, we have about 20,000 Chinese community here. And although that since in the middle of March, these international flights have been stopped. So that these people, they are we can't say, because we don't encourage them to go back to China, because we think that they are here to do some projects. It's better for them to keep working on this project, but with extreme and necessary prevention measures. So, but we do. So far, I think in Pakistan that we have around 20 infectees who have been tested positive of the coronavirus. This is a relatively small number for the Chinese community here. But we also, with the facilitation of the Pakistani government, last week we arranged 3 charters which have taken about 600 people back to China. But another concern for us is that we want to keep these CPAC projects. We want to keep these projects ongoing, because they also can contribute the revival of the economy here.
Exactly, yeah, so that hasn't really slowed down significantly.
No, and basically even that, because this is a government-driven project, we have given some kind of instructions for all the CPAC projects. First, they should not suspend their operation. Second, they should not lay off the local labor and the local employees. Thirdly, that whatever resources they can have or they can mobilize from China, from their headquarters, they have to do it right now. So you can see even these companies becomes a part of our, even the coronavirus fighting team. They are providing their kind of whatever assistance for the local community.
Welcome back. I'm here in conversation with the Chinese ambassador to Pakistan, Yao Jing. So, Mr. Ambassador, now that Pakistan has actually, Pakistan has more coronavirus cases than China has. How would you say that Pakistan should act to contain this virus? Since obviously you were the first country to have this experience, what would be your advice to Pakistan?
Yeah, this is also, I think, is quite a big challenge for Pakistan now. Yeah, with the increase of these cases of the coronavirus. And of course, China suffered first for almost 3 months. So in fact, we are in a very close engagement with the Pakistani government. But I think that different countries have the different conditions, and the different conditions will cause different approaches in dealing with that. So for China, for example, we had a very strict lockdown for the very beginning for almost two weeks, but we paid a heavy economic cost. It is very costly. But in Pakistan, I think the government has trying its best to strike a kind of balance of economic well-being and control of this disease. So we understand. We understand. From the very beginning, we shared our experience basically on 2 areas. First is the prevention and control. So we sent our first medical experts delegation who came here in March. And we jointly working with the Pakistani experts to have some kind of SOPs or measures for that. And right now, the second stage we pay focus on the medication and the treatment, because according to my understanding that with the increase of the number, maybe in the future, these critical cases or these heavy symptoms will increase. So we are going to build more for the medical and the treatment capacities for Pakistan. In fact, that I think the government is doing a right thing is that advocate for the awareness of the common people, of the Pakistani citizens. In China, very, I think, effective way for preventing this coronavirus is only 3 measures. One is washing hands as frequently as you can. Second, wear masks wherever you go. Thirdly, keeping the distance or social distance when you are in contact with the other people. Only by these 3 measures, in fact, this coronavirus could be prevented very effectively. Right now, in fact, I'm also a little concerned the increasing of that. But I believe that with the discipline and also with the organization of the government and the local people, hopefully that this situation will come into a better shape in the near future.
Yeah, and you mentioned the wearing of masks just now. So there are a lot of countries that haven't made it compulsory. I think Pakistan just did just a couple of weeks ago. How important do you think the role of masks is, in fact?
Yeah, from the China's experience, this is the most important prevention measures, because this wearing masks is not only to protect yourself, but in case you are a patient. But by wearing masks, you could also avoid carry this to the other people. So this is a 2-way prevention. So strongly also we advocate or recommend the wearing the masks when you are in the public areas.
Yeah. And the other thing that you mentioned there was a very early lockdown put in place in Wuhan.
Yes.
And this was obviously the first time in the world that anything like this was ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this was the most effective way of stopping the spread of the virus, or were these three other things that you mentioned also important?
Yes, I think that because of this kind of coronavirus, for China, it is unexpected. So in the very beginning, in late January, when we heard this lockdown in Wuhan, and you know the Wuhan population is 11 million people over there. So we were in a panic. We don't know how to do at that time. But later on, we locked down the whole province, 16 million people, of Hubei province. And later on, we expanded the whole scope almost to all over China. I think that for the kind of sudden spread or outbreak of this pandemic in a certain area, it is very effective to lock down.
Yeah.
But also we need a lot of facilitations and supportive measures. For example, we should have enough hospitals. We should have enough isolation facilities. We should have enough this medical team or medical staff to deal with these patients. So I think that for China, the experience this total lockdown, it is effective, but it is not very sustainable and costly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what it did, it stopped the virus from spreading all over the country. Like, I don't think there were that many other hotspots in China, or were there?
Yes, I think right now there's no more domestic cases. I think right now we do have some cases. Basically, these are the people coming back from abroad, from other countries. Domestically, but we're still very careful. For example, 2 weeks ago, we have another round of thorough testing for whole population of the Wuhan city. So 11 million people, they got tested again, once again. No single one is left out. So I think we are still very careful, and we are very much careful about to in case this kind of epidemic comes back.
Absolutely. And I mean, you already kind of touched upon this, but obviously Pakistan and China have had different approaches to the virus. But what do you think the main differences between these two countries are in terms of tackling a problem like the coronavirus?
Yeah, I think we have first, as I said, we have the different national conditions. When we can, maybe that China, we can afford this kind of lockdown. But I believe, like the Prime Minister Imran Khan and the Pakistani government, in their mind, they take more attention to the well-being, to the survival of the people. So it is understandable from our side. Second is that I think, for example, the timing is different. But in January, in the winter time in China, we didn't have a lot of, maybe at that time, a lot of these kind of movements. But here, unfortunately, it was, for example, holy month of Ramadan, and also the most important festival, our Eid festival. So this timing is a little different. Thirdly, I think that although both China and Pakistan are family-based communities, but I think this kind of tradition is stronger in Pakistan than in China. So that here the family gathering and the community movements are more frequently. So I can understand that sometimes that this kind of control of the movement, this lockdown of all these activities is extremely difficult for the people and for the government of Pakistan.
Absolutely. And so how did China address these economic concerns of people who, for example, lost their jobs?
I think right now, yes, I think this is the biggest challenge, even during the coronavirus pandemic in China. So in fact, this is a similar approaches or policies we are doing along with I think similar with Pakistani. For example, we pay attention to the SMEs. These small and medium-sized entrepreneurs or companies, they are the most vulnerable. So right now that we are encouraging, giving a lot of incentives by the banking or loan or for whatever, for them to build their or rebuild their economic activities. Second is we are facilitate labor intensified or that these local labor focused sectors. Here, the Pakistani government picked out the construction sector. For China, we are facilitating basically for the service sector. So we arrange special trains, we arrange special quarantine measures for all those laborers who are supposed to go back to there. And thirdly, of course, that our government also give a kind of incentives to the different provinces. Some provinces are poor, some provinces are more relatively advanced. So especially for those less developed provinces, we government also give some incentives by building some infrastructures or start some kind of major projects for the infrastructure.
Yeah. So what is the situation like right now in Wuhan? Has everything gone back to normal, or are some precautions still being taken there?
Well, Wuhan, I think since 8th of April, for the past almost 2 months, things are normal now. Everything's normal. Okay. Yeah, and
that's very encouraging, actually.
That is encouraging, but we also are very precautious. So that is 2 weeks ago, we have another thorough test for all the Wuhan people. And fortunately, we don't find any more positive cases. So that is give us a little more confidence that this pandemic in Wuhan is controlled. So right now, schools are open, shopping is, even the shopping centers are open, and people can travel freely now.
Yeah. Are they still wearing masks though?
I think some of the precautious members of the community are still wearing, but most I don't think they are no more. We are not make it a mandate anymore.
Okay, that's great. So obviously China is the largest manufacturer of personal protective equipment. What is the situation right now? Like some months ago, it was very difficult for countries to get access to PPE. Has the manufacturing gone up now, or are there still some shortages?
Yeah, I think China is still the major manufacturer of all these PPEs, we call the prevention materials. But I think especially that first, it also is the largest market. In January and February and March, China even imported or purchased a lot from the other countries. But later on, China became a major supply. I think in April or in May sometime, our supply or the manufacturing was affected because of the raw materials, because of the shortage of the laborers, and also at that time still we had some kind of limitation of the movements. But I just give you one example. Right now, every day we can produce or manufacture as many as 800,000 PPEs one day in China. So right now, this is one of the major contributions we can make to the global community, that all the medical as well as prevention materials are abundantly available in China.
And China has also promised to give Pakistan some ventilators, and I believe you also sent some doctors here at some point. What else are you doing for Pakistan?
Yes, I think I'm very proud because but I have to thank Pakistan first, because as early as on the 1st of February, it was Pakistani government which was among the first to provide this PPE assistance to China. At that time, we received about 800,000 pieces of PPEs from Pakistan government, and we sent all of them to Wuhan, to the center, and the whole community and the people were so grateful. But later on, unfortunately, when this epidemic came to Pakistan. So Pakistan, I'm very proud that is our major partner of this antivirus cooperation. So far, I think we have provided almost 7 million pieces of the PPEs, about 600 ventilators, and of course we donated an isolation hospitals, and so this kind of assistance is still here and available, but more importantly, that is the Pakistani manufacturers. They have started to manufacture their own PPEs and masks, and a lot of machines or equipment come from China, a lot of raw materials. So right now, we are also doing our best to guarantee or secure the smooth supply of these raw materials here.
We're going to take a short break. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. I'm in conversation with the Chinese ambassador Yao Jing. So, Mr. Ambassador, now I wanted to stay and talk about the coronavirus still for a little bit. A lot of people are obviously thinking about when are we going to get a vaccine so all of this can finally be over. China has been in the front lines of developing a vaccine. What are the latest developments? Is there any hope that there might be a vaccine soon?
Yes, this is a quite difficult question. I think also a lot of countries, apart from China, are working on the development of vaccine, because this is the hope, I think, for us to finally defeat this coronavirus. But what I can collect the information from our media and some of our major medical companies, because they are doing. As far as my understanding, there are 2 companies. Their experimental vaccine has been moving into the clinical stage. That is, they are testing on the human beings. Some top Chinese scientists, they are claiming in the media is that as early as the end of this year, we can see maybe some of the successful vaccine development. But of course, there are a lot of international efforts of it. So whoever developed these vaccines, I think it should be a blessing for whole community.
So China has also been using this mobile app for tracking people who have caught the coronavirus, and I think it had some interesting color codes like yellow, green, and red based on symptoms and travel history. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, in fact, we developed 2 systems because China's population is too huge. And if we use the labor force to prevent and control the movement, so we built 2 systems. One is a domestic system. We use this so-called APP, or we call the health code APP for domestic citizens in China. That is, we record or that they register themselves from their wherever they start to use this APP, especially for some major cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, these cities, because there are a lot of outside labor coming from other provinces. So they have to have this trace. So far we have the different 3 levels. One is green, that means you are clean, that you have been tested and you have no contact with any suspects and something. Second is orange, that is that you may have traveled some affected areas like Hubei or Wuhan, so you may have some kind of potential. Also, if you have this orange level, you may request to a new test of the PCR test or something. Third one, of course, is red, and they will limit your movement, because this means that you may not pass the test or something. This is the one domestic system, and for them we only apply these APPs for the movers who are moving. If you stay in a certain place, then we don't request this. Second is international Chinese people, because right now the international travelers, they are also faced with this. But basically this is only for our own consumption. For example, for the Pakistani, in Pakistan, there are some Chinese community who are going back to China maybe in 1 or 2 weeks. So usually before they booked any air tickets, we ask them to apply this kind of APP so we can see that where they have traveled and what kind of people they have been in contact. Of course, they can have the test, but if we can trace them, because in case this person is tested positive, we can also trace his contacts here, and we give them some alert, give them precautions that you may be affected by these people. So this is I think it is quite effective.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. So another question I wanted to ask you was about these Pakistani students who were in Wuhan. There was quite a lot of conversation about whether they should be evacuated or not at the time, but I believe most of them stayed on in China. What happened in the end to them?
Yes, I think this started in February. You know that in February that in China, for most of the colleges and the universities, they went into the winter holidays. And unfortunately that this pandemic started over there. So they were stuck. And a lot of concern because China, at that time, even we ourselves, we didn't know what kind of situation it could be. Nobody never faced with this kind of challenge. So this kind of panic naturally is went to the Pakistani community. In the city of Wuhan, we have totally 731 Pakistani students. But all over the province, Hubei province, we have more than 1,000. So a lot of concerns or panic from the family or the parents of the Pakistani students. They were stuck in China. But at that time that we had regular discussions with the Pakistani government. This is a very difficult decision at that time for us to take. We keep them there because the government of Pakistan also that they believed when the situation was not very clear, maybe that's because at least in China, we had some kind of medication methods. We had some kind of experience in dealing with these people, or these patients. So that is our joint decision that keep them there. So I think that we kept them for about 2 months. But right now in the end, I think that they in April, the Pakistani government took one flight of the repatriation, the students back to Pakistan. But still, I think more than 400 Pakistani students right now, they are still in Wuhan. So most of them, they stay over there, and then right now they are attending the regular education. They are they are the students.
And I mean, that leads me to my next question, which was about, I mean, you know, there's obviously a lot of interest towards learning Chinese among Pakistanis now because of CPAC and the work opportunities. Do you offer any kind of scholarships for Pakistani students to go and study in China or to study Chinese in general?
I think that this is a new, I should say, phenomenon, which came with the CPAC or with this enhanced level of economic cooperation between China and Pakistan. So the Chinese language, I think it becomes a major, I should say a major subject for some young students of Pakistan. So there are two ways in learning Chinese for the Pakistani students. One is that in Pakistan right now we have 5 Chinese language departments in different universities, Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, and Hyderabad, and Sargodha, and this. So they are also offered the regular Chinese language. But more importantly, right now we offered every year, we offer about 20,000 scholarships for the Pakistani students. Of course, they are not purely for the language. But you know that in China, most of the major courses are taught in Chinese language. So for the Chinese scholarships, if you get one, and you have to spend at least 6 months or 1 year to learn the Chinese language first, then you will join the regular university education. And I think that this is a good thing because language can help the two peoples to come closer, to understand more about each other.
Absolutely.
Right now, Pakistani students are the number 3 largest community in China. The first is Korea, second is Thailand, third is Pakistan. So we are very proud we can host more than 20,000 Pakistani students in different education institutions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think language is the biggest barrier between Chinese and
the Chinese language is extremely difficult.
Yeah, so I hear. Okay, so despite this close cooperation between Pakistanis and Chinese, the culture is also quite different. Not only the language, but culture also. What have you noticed? What are the biggest differences between Pakistani and Chinese culture?
I think yes. For the biggest, I think is basically is our religions, because Pakistan is basically is an Islamic country, and they have very rich religious culture and religious habits or these customs. For China, we have different traditions. We have the traditional Confucius or Buddhist and these things. Of course, Islam is a major religion for China also. But my personal experience is these religious differences of our beliefs and of our differences in the behavior and this kind of customs between us. But I don't think that this kind of difference make that the people-to-people contact more difficult. The fundamental culture or the community culture is same. For example, I always say, first, we attach the great importance to the family. This is the basic unit in both societies. Because second, we pay a lot of respect and authority to the senior people, to the elders in China, because we have the similar system. Elders decide everything. And thirdly, that we put this community interest beyond individuals' interest. This is also, so in fact, in Pakistan, we see more similarities or more assimilations than the differences.
I mean, you mentioned that you've gotten to travel around the country a lot, especially in the 90s. Do you have any favorite places?
Yeah, I have a lot of favorite places, but I think most interesting place or the most beautiful place for me have ever visited is this Skardu in the northern areas of Pakistan, and they call it the Shangri-La. And this lake, I spent 2 nights on that lake, and staying in a very Chinese, I think a little Chinese similar, small in the Skardu. So this is a very quiet and very natural and very, I should say, very impressive and beautiful areas. Also, I visited, of course, for example, this year, not in 1990s, this year I visited Gwadar. Gwadar has a great potential of the tourism. For example, the geographical surface over there is so different. In China, we can't see any kind of places like the geographical features in Gwadar. And of course, I always say that for the Chinese potential tourists, Pakistan has 2 or 3 attractions. One is this high mountains and snows areas basically in the GB area. Second is the historical sightseeing, like places in Lahore. And thirdly is that we call the Buddhist heritages like Taxila, like Swat and Peshawar. So in fact, we are discussing with the Pakistani government to develop these 3 routes. We call the historical sightseeing, natural sightseeing, and Buddhist heritage sightseeing. Pakistan is very rich in these tourism potentials. And you know that China has a bigger population, and every year we have more than 150 million people going out of China only for sightseeing. So if we can have a reasonable share of these tourists, it could be a good boosting of our cooperation.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, now it's time for our rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, great. Shalwar kameez or suit?
Suit.
Okay. Lahore or Karachi?
Lahore.
Okay. Chopsticks or eating with hands?
Chopsticks.
Fair enough. Dumplings or samosas?
Samosas.
Interesting.
It's a fried dumpling.
Yeah. Kabul or Islamabad?
Islamabad.
Street art or truck art?
Street art.
Yeah? Okay. The Forbidden City or the walled city of Lahore?
Forbidden City.
Okay. The first thought that comes to your mind when I say CPAC?
So development.
Okay. Pakistani weddings?
Interesting.
Yeah? The Great Wall of China?
Yeah, so quite remote.
All right, okay. Your favorite word in Urdu?
This Bandarubia.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
No, in fact,
Okay.
if I can change, is that my favorite Urdu language, or this word is kana kana.
Yeah, kana kana. Yeah, okay. Great. All right. The best thing about Pakistan?
Food.
Great. Okay. So now that we can't have you sign our visitors book like we usually do in our show, would you have a message for our viewers?
Yeah, of course, if I can sign the visitor books, I just only a very simple message. That is, I love Pakistan.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for joining us today. And I hope one day this pandemic is over and I get to meet you in person as well.
Yes, most welcome. And I'm once again sorry we only can have this video interview. And thank you for all the time and for all the efforts to make it happen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today. Please join me again next week. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts at indus.news. Stay home, stay safe. Goodbye.